sees it. You have to feel it when it's not tangible. You have to believe it when you cannot see it. You gotta be possessed with the dream. What's up, guys, and welcome to Straight from the Chest podcast. My name is Justin Groth, and I'm your host on this personal development, self-improvement podcast. Listen, if you're new to this show, I just want to take this time and I want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me your time. Your attention means a lot to me. And whether this is your second, 22nd, or 222nd time tuning back into the show, thank you for your continued listenership, support of the channel. It means a lot to me. And if this is a podcast that you value, please, please, please share it with somebody who you think would value from it as well. Post it on your Instagram platforms, social media of any sort, Facebook, Twitter, anything. Copy the link, paste it. Support the channel by sharing it. And if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, or anywhere that there is podcasts. And the YouTube channel as well. Please subscribe there if you haven't as well. And again, just thank you for your continued listenership, support of the channel. It means a lot to me. And the guests that we have on as well. And speaking of guests, Milay, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for doing the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's give people a little bit of a background on how we met. So you're a bodybuilder, you're a bikini competitor, a pro.
Yes.
And we go to Fitness 19 here in Rio Grande, California. And I just want to tell people real quick how or why I wanted to have you on. You know, I kind of spoke with you briefly about this before we even started recording, but I've always admired your work ethic in the gym. I've always admired the way you train and how hard you train and how dedicated you are and how disciplined you are. And, you know, I know there's a lot to becoming a pro in any field you're in. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of discipline involved. There's a lot of tenacity involved. There's a lot of work ethic involved, etc. And doing those things for long stints of time to become a pro at anything you're doing, you know? Mm-hmm. But it was very remarkable for me to notice somebody in real time training as hard as you do, because I don't typically see people train that hard. And, you know, you asked me briefly about, you know, like, well, I forgot it was the line of question. I'm going to butcher it, so I don't even want to. Let's just say this. When I did come up to you and ask you, when we started engaging in conversation, you know, I didn't want to come up to you because I know that you were so intentful with your training, and you're much like myself in that regard. And people have a hard time kind of engaging with you because they don't want to interrupt your workouts, you know. And when you do have that person that comes up to you, it's you and I both kind of agreed to this. It's very humbling that person actually has the gumption to come up to you and talk to you and get your advice. And you know, that's just an organic, authentic, and humbling experience, you know. And I always wanted to, but I never wanted to interrupt, because you can see the intent on your face when you're training. You can see the discipline. You can see the work ethic shine through you. And again, I've always admired that. It's a very noble thing to see in somebody. Mm-hmm. And I guess let's start here. What got you into bodybuilding? What got you into the pursuit of competing?
That's a good question. My girlfriend, Lisa, I'll start. That is the trigger. She was just an acquaintance at the time, and I went to Kennedy, and she came up to me and she said, "Have you ever considered doing figure?" And I said, "What's that?" That's kind of how it started. But anyway, that's what started. And so then I looked up a catalog on what is figure. And then I started looking at pictures of what figure was. And I was like, wow, that looks pretty cool. I want to look like that. So that was just kind of the beginning. But if I have to go back even further, I think it was just a challenge. It was the challenge to see if I could do it.
Was there any doubt that you had moving into it, as you might not be able to do this thing?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. For sure. I mean, I have, you know, things that hurt all the time, and I just didn't think that I could look like that or be built like that. And the thing that Lisa told me, she goes, "You have the perfect body symmetry for frame for that sport." And I said, I do. And so anyway, me and my girlfriend said, hey, let's try it. So we just followed this catalog, train like this, work this day and that day. And then leading up to a show, start eating like this and start cutting your carbs and do more cardio. We just followed this entire thing. We didn't know how to be in a show. We didn't know how to pose. We just kind of watched pictures and, I don't think YouTube was a big thing then. But then there was only 3 competitors. I was second. But I got such a thrill winning that I wanted to do it again. It was not easy. I had no coach. And so anyway, that's how it started.
You went into it with no coach?
Oh, no. Just
really?
A catalog or whatever that was.
That was your coach, the catalog, basically. I think for most competitors, it's really dark waters when they move into that sort of ambition to compete. It's like, how do I go about this? It's so complex. It's like, where do I start? How do I train? How do I eat? Who do I sign up with to coach me for this thing? Who's the best coach for me? Et cetera, et cetera. All these different questions. And it makes people not even do it. It knocks people out of the line from even engaging in that sort of pursuit because they're like, there's so many unanswered questions. I don't know where to start and I don't want to fail. That's the biggest thing. I don't want to fail. I don't want to, well, I would say maybe not the biggest thing for everybody. For most competitors, it's like, I don't want to fail. Like I don't know how many people I've talked to that are competing for the first time and they go in to compete with the mindset of, I want to get first. And as much as I admire that, that's not going to be likely the case. You're not going to get first if you have a pretty decent crowd that you're competing against and they've done it for quite some time. But they go into it with the mindset of, I want to get first.
Are you talking to male or female?
I think the most of the people I'm talking about is male. Yeah, they go into that with mindset.
Because I was just pretty happy to get there. I mean, I didn't even know what to do backstage. I looked around and I noticed that people are eating rice cakes. I'm like, why are they eating rice cakes and peanut butter? And why are they eating all those sweet potatoes?
Really?
I did not know what the heck pumping up was. I'm like, where should we be doing what they're doing?
Really?
We were just, I'm sure we were pretty annoying.
But that's all a testament to your genetics when it comes down to it. Because genetics play a huge helping hand with anybody. I don't care how hard you work. Genetics play a huge helping hand. In terms of your muscle makeup, the way you're designed, your frame, everything, how you grow, where you grow.
I did tell you there was 3 competitors, right?
I'm just saying in general, like they're like people will chalk up the fact that, oh, I look this way because I train hard. Yeah, you train hard. Like that's a given. Everybody should train hard. Mm-hmm. You're able, you're capable. Train hard for sure. But if certain areas on you are more pronounced than others, it's likely just genetic derived. It's not because you train that part harder than all the rest. It's just an area that sticks out to you more than other parts. Like, do you have those areas where you are more gifted than in other areas?
Not that I know of.
Well, that's a good thing. You're all symmetry. Yes, you're very symmetrical. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
With a lot of guys, they'll have like bigger arms and shoulders than like their chest or back. Like they'll be dominant. Like the shoulders and arms will be dominant over their pecs or the width on their back. And then vice versa. They might have really wide lats, really wide back rather, and small arms and, okay shoulders and a big Brillo chest. It's just genetics. Like
Okay, I take that back. I do have quads, but the quads don't help you in bikini.
Right.
I had to kind of shrink them down. So
what are some of the things that help for people listening that are kind of just like unaware of this? What are some of the things that really bring you to the top in terms of bikini? Like what do the judges look for in a bikini athlete to take a top spot?
It's all shoulders, tiny waist, and glutes.
Really?
And the glutes are it's rounded. So you upper glutes, lateral, and mid. Yeah.
Really?
Medius. Yep.
So,
and I would say ham tie-in. You win from your backside.
Really? So now what's the level of conditioning that they have to bring?
It depends. In the amateur level, you could be softer In the pro level, they want you more conditioned, I feel. And it depends on the group of judges. And this is probably the most objective judging panel on out of all the categories. Bikini is probably, and I want to say worst, but because it'll really depend on the panel that you're with. And even with the same panel, they might even pick you a second, and the second time you come in, the girl that you beats you. It's just, so you can't be too hard on yourself because even the judges can't get you straight.
And are there politics involved with bikini?
Yes, huge. And so that's another thing that it's not a very concrete way to measure your athleticism because it's just opinion from the judges. And oftentimes, and you hear this a lot, that if you belong to a really good team, one that sponsors, I'd like to think that now that I do belong to a really good team, mostly because this coach is amazing, that I'm winning because of me, not because of the team, but you hear that all the time, that it really does matter what team you're on, or it's political, and I don't know if you heard the news about some things that athletes do on the side to get their wins. And I think that's more on the pro level as far as Olympia is concerned, but which I'm not going to do because I'm a master bikini pro, which means 35, 40, 45, and I'm 54 now, so I'm 50 plus. And next year I can do 55. Wow.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what those politics might be on the Olympia level, at the Olympia level?
Well, not really, because I'm not an Olympian.
Well, but you have some insight?
Well, I mean, no, to be honest, I don't know.
Because this is politics. That's kind of new to me. I didn't know that guys could, or girls could pay their way. Is that what
No, I didn't say pay.
Sorry.
But pay not in monetary ways, in favors.
In favors, okay.
Yeah, and shady favors.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And scandalous kind of favors.
Gotcha. I think people can pick up on what you're saying. Yeah. Wow. But, I guess that's a testament to being a human being. Even though...
I think you're flesh.
Even though I'm not. Do not say that. No, I am a little bit. But I think that people, just because you're a judge at the elite level doesn't mean you're not a human being. Right. And doesn't mean you have maybe ill-constructed thoughts or desires, because you're human and you're flawed, and we're all flawed. We're all human. We're all flawed at the end of the day. And we all have, look, there's a level of power that's affiliated with judges. And even though it's not a considerable level of power, it's a level of power to some degree. And so most of the time, the men are going to take advantage of that if they think that they can. Maybe there are some women that do that, but I think that's typically a man thing. Men are wanting that power, that power over people. And that's very narcissistic in theory, or even by definition, I want to say that might be even narcissistic, but because normal people don't care to have power over other people. A normal thing is to not care about power over others and not want to puppet string people if they can. It's not a normal thing, a normal behavior for people to want to have power over other people.
I'm trying to think about what you're saying, power. And I'm thinking of it maybe in a different light. But I think people, if you're saying power in general, I think people do like power. And the way I'm thinking of it is having the power to help someone, having the power to change someone's mindset to better themselves. When you realize that you have the power to do those positive things, I know I'm taking a little bit of a detour from what you were referring to, but not necessarily power over someone, but the power.
Sure, it's different. Yeah,
yes.
It's different. Mm-hmm.
And it is power, though. And when you discover it that way, it's, I guess, a healthy way.
Sure. And I agree with that. I think that the way that I'm describing it is more power over people in a malevolent sense. not
controlling.
Yeah, that's not right.
That's a
That's
negative.
not something that people should want to have over other people. But you're right, like power in terms of persuasion to give people to bring out
good.
the best in people. Absolutely, yeah. But that's a whole different power, and if it's used for that, 100%, that's great. But let's be honest, because people in positions of power, like when they have those positions of power, they abuse them more often than not, if they know that they can. And because typically the man is going to be more tempted to do those things if he knows he has the ability to, he's going to take it. Most of the time they take advantage of it, which is that in and of itself is not something I respect. It's not something that's a good virtue. It's not a noble thing to have in your character repertoire, so to speak. It's not. But it makes sense, is what I'm saying. It does make sense that some of them would do that and be sort of nefarious with what they choose to extract from others or gain from others because they know that they can, because they know there's something that they want and desire riding on the line. They take advantage, and but that was also news to me that even existed. But it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but true.
Speaking of the Olympia coming up, are you going to go to the Olympia?
Actually, good question. I am going to go to
You
watch
are.
for the first time ever.
First time, yeah.
Yeah, and they are considering doing masters, but who knows what year that will happen. But my girlfriend has been inviting me year after year to go with her, and she's really into all the bodybuilding. She goes every year. She follows all the athletes, men and women, of all levels. And I sadly am not. I have other interests. I'm not into. I don't have that kind of time. Not that it's terrible use of time, but I'm just not that into other people's bodybuilding.
Yes.
It's
I agree.
But anyway, so I'm really happy to be going with her and her husband because they know all about it, and it's really cool to go with someone that knows everything and it goes every year. And it's not in Florida this year, and you don't have to wear a mask. It's in Vegas, so I'm excited to go.
Yeah, Lisa's great. You referenced her a couple of times, and I remember Lisa from Kennedy and from Fitness 19. She's so sweet. She's a sweetheart. And she's very complimentary too. Like if you have something that you're doing good, like she's always like the first one to tell you like you have such and such good body part. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's very complimentary in that regard, very sweet, like very encouraging. And I've always loved that about her, and I always like talking to her.
She doesn't hand them out often. So if you got one, that means you really deserved it.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so
definitely.
when you say she's very, I'm like, only the people that deserve it.
Oh, well, either way, I appreciate that. That's very cool. So yeah, me and my buddy were supposed to go to the Olympia this year too. And I've never gone to an Olympia like you because I, like you, don't care. Like I don't care. I don't care to spectate. That's the thing. And I don't care to spectate anything. Sports, even bodybuilding competitions, which is something that's very close to my heart.
I know, right?
I don't care. I want to do. I don't want to watch. And I'm never going to be an Olympic competitor, so I don't care to watch. In fact, the first bodybuilding show I ever went to was my own I did. I never spectated a show before that to see how it was all ran. You probably the same, right?
I'm glad to hear you say that you're the same because I'm not alone. Yeah, but I do want to experience it once in my life because now I am part of a team that has competitors on the stage. I'm thinking, wow, I can also support my team. My coach will be there. There's lots of aspects now that it's attractive. And it just kind of, it's like I met competitors this year at the last few shows. I met some competitors that were from out of the country, Italy, Brazil, Portugal. And I said, why are you here living just to do competitions? We're all here for the Olympia. And I'm like, wow, really? I didn't realize it was such a huge thing from all these countries to try to get to the Olympia. They're all gunning for the Olympia stage. And I'm like, I should go watch this thing, but that all these competitors from all over the world, that's what they're shooting for. That's their goal, which is sometimes when I think about it, quite sad that that's it. You know, there's so many things to life, right? Besides the
it's true.
stage for
Yeah,
me.
it's true.
But
We even had a discussion about that in the gym. Remember our discussion about that? Like you were. First of all, people should know that this is like the biggest Olympia in like the last 20 years, probably. At least a decade or a decade and a half. This is the most anticipated Olympia in a long time. They're going to be the best of the, it's always the best of the best, but people are going to be everybody's going to be bringing their A game. And there's so many good guys and so many good girls that are competing, especially in the male division. Like there's so many crazy looking great guys that are competing for that top 5 spot. It's almost like,
well, there's a lot of candidates. I think everybody brings their A game, but there's a lot of people that are peaked now
true.
with their muscle growth, their size, and they're all at that same level. There's so many at that level right now. I think it's really hard for a guy to be peaking their muscle wise because it takes so much to get that huge. But yeah, you're right. There is quite the number of good candidates this year, and it's gonna be cool. And why aren't you going?
Well, so my buddy he was the one that was drawing me into it because he was actually a friend of mine that I do my other podcast with. His name's Sledge. He's a professional wrestler. And we do this podcast called Beauty and Brown Podcast. Shout out to Beauty and Brown Podcast. If you're not subscribed to that, please go subscribe to that. Spotify and YouTube. And he was wanting to go there. He's like, come on, man, let's go. We actually talked about it on the podcast one time. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. He got me when he said, I already have podcasts lined up with people. And I'm like, done. Let's do it. Because I care about the podcasting. I don't really care about the Olympia. And that's just truth. That's just... So when he said that, I'm like, I'll go now. I'll make it a thing to go. And then what ended up happening was an event ended up happening on his end for like wrestling. And it made him busy that weekend. So now he can't go. So now if he's not going to go, I'm not going to go. So it's out now. But... we were initially going to do that, and that was going to be the first Olympia I've ever been to. But it's going to be such... I'm not really particular to having... I don't like lots of people around me. Like, not like around me, but I don't like being in large crowds. It's kind of just... I'm a very private person in my life and most of the things I do, and I just don't really care for all that crowd, you know? I think the most I'll put up is like a Disneyland. I'll put up a Disneyland because it's Disneyland. I love Disneyland. But but apart from that, like I just don't really care for the crowds like that. And
I can identify with that.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's still an experience I want to do once in my life.
True. Like on a bucket list.
I feel like especially with Lisa, because she can show me around and she I have a person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, you'll have fun. You'll have a lot of fun. And you'll get a lot of free stuff, I'm sure. Like, that's one of the things that was cool that I remember, like, friends going and they got all kinds of free protein shirts, pre-workouts, all that sort of thing. And so that would be cool. Like, the swag portion would be cool, But anyways, maybe next year.
Okay.
But also, people are not going to be worried about COVID as much.
Yeah.
So then that's going to kind of be cool because we won't have to wear masks and do that sort of thing. So, but yeah, the Olympia, that's on the 18th. Is it 15th? 15th and the 16th?
Yeah, well, the 17th is the day. Saturday, the 17th is the day I'm going.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And you're going to stay one night, overnight?
Well, actually, my husband will be there, so on the weekend before. So I'm going Wednesday to spend some time with him, and then it does start on, I believe it starts on Thursday, but every night it's expensive to go. So I'm just going to go watch the bikini and whatever else is on Saturday night.
The men's is probably going to be like the last thing, I'm sure, right? In the lineup.
Gosh, I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know the lineup.
The in terms of like how I think
what
the men are I think the men's open is the last.
Yeah.
Like they go on
That's
late.
the big guys open. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Guys are like 280, 290 pounds shredded, and they're like 5'7". That is insane. Do people understand listening to how big? That's a walking house.
Yeah.
That is a house, man. Like can they even fit through the doorway? Or do you have to turn sideways?
That's more than twice my weight, I think. 2 of me.
Oh, but they look like 5 of you. They
Oh,
look
yeah, that's
like
true.
in person. They look like 5 of you. They look like 4 of me in person. Like they're cartoony looking.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
remember that's how they started out when IFBB started. They said they started testing, and the audience said, we don't like these guys because they were all kind of small.
Yeah.
They're all, we want to see freaks.
Oh, really?
And
Is that how it
that's when
happened?
the IFBB owner said, I had to let them take their steroids
Really?
because the audience was complaining that they didn't like what they were seeing anymore. They wanted to see, we came to see freaks,
Yeah.
which sounds awful, doesn't it?
It does. But it's like the more obtuse something is, the better to spectate. It's like when you're watching a conversation on TV. The reason why reality TV is so captivating and good is because it's drama oriented. If there was no drama, you would not want to pay attention.
Right.
You wouldn't want to keep tuning in because it's like, this is just, I have these conversations. This is dumb. I wouldn't change the channel. You want captivating, compelling arguments to kind of lace yourself into, you know, and immerse yourself in the drama. But so that sells, you know, it's just like that sells, sex sells, drama sells. It just is what, and also those things that are freaky sell, you know, but at the expense of their health, right? At the expense of just, and I guess it's to each their own. If they want to do that, then they have full right to do so or not to do so. So they choose their life, they choose their path, they choose their pursuit, etc., you know. But it's like the judge is right with that. Like natural bodybuilding is not impressive. It's just not. Like, natural guys, unless you have a freak. And by freak, I mean like, you know, maybe has 10 pounds of muscle over a natural, like the normal person. It's unimpressive. I mean, they can get really conditioned. And that's what they pride themselves on, I think, is the conditioning aspect because they don't have the size aspect. But it's just not that impressive. And when you watch them, you're just like, you know.
Yeah. I think the road to the stage is really different for a bikini competitor than
How so?
well, for one, we don't have to build that much. I mean, a bikini. I started out in figure, and that was a little bit bigger. And mind you, over the course of the years, I started in 2011 in figure because that's what Lisa said I look like. And yes, I did look like a figure girl then, but now the figure girls are huge, especially at the pro level. And my end goal was to get my pro card, but I also didn't want to spend the money to go on the East Coast where most of the shows were for masters. And I always did the open, competing with all of the young girls. And I did well, but never close enough to get my pro card. And then I got sick and couldn't compete anymore. And then fast forward to 2020, COVID, I kind of spent all this time at home. What do I do with my time? I started working out and I'm like, I think I have a little muscle left. And they said, you would do really good in bikini because bikini, you leave your hair down so you don't have to work on your back. You don't have to work on your lats so much because they want you a little softer. In bikini, in figure, they want you a little leaner. So that's also harder because you have to lean out. And also they want quads and they want just everything bigger. And I thought if I do bikini, then I don't have to work so hard in the gym to get big. But I come to realize now you do have to work hard because the bikini girls got big. But at least I don't have to work so hard as far as in terms of getting that big, huge lat. And besides, the body, the bodies that the figure girls have now is not what I want to look like anyway. So that's kind of naturally segued me into bikini. But anyway, so I didn't even start till I was 41. But I think it was then when I decided I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if I can make it to the stage and look like that. And that's kind of what started this whole thing. I wonder if I could do it. And even if I back up before then, I think I was telling you, my mother only made it to age 41. So at that point, I felt like, I'm on my last days. Let's see how much I can accomplish before my days are over. And I just had this fearless sense of, okay, challenge. Let's take that challenge. I've never done that. Let's do it. Let's see if I can do that. I wasn't a runner. I started running. I hated running, to be honest. So then I tried a marathon, and my girlfriend says, hey, let's try a triathlon. And we did that. And then, well, let's try a bigger one. And then I'm like, well, how far is that? And how far do we have to bike? I don't have bike. I don't have those shoes or whatever. And they said, oh, let's do a half Ironman. And I'm like, well, how far is that? I mean, I was the dumbest athlete, but I mean, cancel and clear that. But I ended up doing this just to do it with them. A, to be with my friends, to do something together. And B, just to see what would happen. Just to see how far I can go. And I thought the worst that can happen is I reached my limit. But I won't know the limit until I try. And that has been the basis of all of these challenges. And so after all that was done, I became this, I did the half Ironman, I did all that. And then I looked at my body and I go, the vain part of me said, why don't I look like that girl in this magazine? You know, if I'm being honest, I wanted to look like this fit girl. And I didn't. And all these girls that were, these other athletes, they were big too. And I'm like, well, clearly it's not about the hours you spend training. And then I realized that competing or body sculpting was about diet. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started looking into what does a bodybuilder, a figure competitor do? And I saw all these different competitors with families, which my kids were small at the time, showing how they did it. They just meal prepped. And I'm all, meal prep? Aha, that's how they do it. And they just talked about how they manage their husband, kids, work life, everything. And so I just kind of followed that role modeling. And then I said, well, she can do it, I can do it. And then I still remember to this day, years prior, or not too long before, Dara Torres, the Olympian, she's a 41-year-old that won silver. I want to say 19. I can't remember exactly what year. I want to say 2004. But anyway, she came back and she won. And I'm like, she's 41. That was my age. And I said, I can do this. If she can do this, what is... And then I started thinking about, what's stopping me? Nothing. It's all in here. Mm-hmm. It's what you want to say to yourself. It's your self-talk. And so then I said, okay, let's see if I can do it. And that, I think that's kind of the question for everything. Let's see if I can do it. And I think that I want to share that with everybody. Let's see if you can do it. Because I don't know how many times I get at the gym, I can't do what you do. Well, you can't because you just said you couldn't. You know, that's like the self-talk, right?
Yeah.
You start with there. And if I can share anything, it's your mindset, because everything is in your head. Anxiety, stress, all of it is in your head. And so can your mindset to achieve. I mean, the self-talk to be negative is also the same self-talk to be positive and to achieve. So
it's what you choose to push your attention towards, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, self-talk is very, very important, and it's almost essential to your navigation in life, like with everybody, no matter what you're doing.
Not almost essential. Not almost. It is. Totally.
Yeah. And the people that don't have that self-talk, they don't have that constant reiteration of their, almost like they're more than they think, they're more than they are currently. You have to believe that about yourself before anything actually materializes in real time. You have to believe that you're more now, or you're at the position that you want to be at now before you even get there. Because if you think, well, I'll act that way when I get there, you'll never get there. You have to direct yourself now in accordance with what might not be real yet. You almost have to live in a dreamland to some degree about yourself, but it's not just dreams. They're just unplayed out visions They're just unplayed visions that have yet to be materialized in real time. And so if you operate and navigate your life like that, then automatically things will attract to you that you wouldn't have had otherwise, because you are now thinking on a different frequency, and that is going to attract other things that are analogous to whatever you want to become. And people think this is like bogus or hocus pocus stuff. Try it. Just do this for me. Try it for a month. Think of yourself as something more. Even if it means you venturing out of being, dare I say, humble, not to other people, but to yourself with how you view yourself. So what I'm saying is, as an example, don't say to your other people, you know I'm the shit, right? Don't say that. But think that essentially, that you have something that is great, that you are this highlighted thing, and you're really, really, really good. I don't want to say better than anybody, because you should never think that, but that you're really, really good. Instead of thinking like, I'm good, think you're really good, and then operate that way in your actions. I'm not saying tell people that. I'm saying operate that way. And you'll be surprised at what ends up attracting to you. And it's going to come by way of first people that are going to give you affirmations in the things that you're actually thinking, because you're in real time acting these things out through your movements, through your actions, through the way that you interact with people. And it's going to be confirmed by other people. And then that's going to build up an understanding of, well, maybe I do have what it takes. That's going to build up competency. And then that breeds confidence. And then it's just kind of like a recirculation of, or a feedback mechanism that keeps feeding itself. And then until the point where you get to a level where you never thought you'd be at. But it starts with what you're saying. You have to constantly self-talk to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I practice every morning. I mean, some people don't believe in this, but manifest. I mean, I strongly believe in manifesting. But to add to what you were saying, your intentions need to be pure. If they are for malice or things like that, that is not going to surface for you. You know, if it's not to serve your highest good or those around you, it's not going to manifest. But certainly if you manifest the negative, just like the ones, don't get hit by a car. Oh, right. You don't want to say that, right? You don't, that's the negative. You want to say, I am healthy. I am a winner. In fact, this is what I see every morning when I'm competing. On the stage of any stage, when you compete, there's an X to symbolize that that's the first place spot. And they say when you manifest, you should use all your senses, visual, sense of smell, sense of touch. So what I feel in the morning is the heat of the stage lights. I smell the smell of the tan, all the spray tan and body odor, because you can't wear deodorant. And then I can barely see the judges because the lights are shining so bright that you see almost like little silhouettes of the judges' faces. But you can barely see their eyes looking at me. And then I see the X underneath my feet. I see shouts. I hear shouts of my name from my family or whoever is shouting out my number. And then I feel my waistline hurting from holding myself up so high and twisted in the most uncomfortable position and smiling. And I remember how your smile gets stuck to your teeth. So I remember this and trying to act relaxed and like, yeah, this doesn't hurt. I stand like this all the time with my stomach sucked in. So all those things combined, that same feeling. And then they hand me the check, or they hand me the trophy or the tiara or whatever they're giving away. You put yourself in all of those senses in any situation, not just stage, your work, where they hand you the recommendation, promotion, the job. They call you and say, hey, you are now we're offering you this position. Anything that you want to manifest, if you do not see, like you were saying, believe it, you actually don't have to believe it, but you have to say it. And you just have to repeat it in your mind until you believe it. Because not everybody will believe it. That shouldn't stop you from saying it. You know, did I ever believe I was going to be a pro in bikini? No. But did that stop me from trying? No. I didn't know that this would ever happen, nor did I think that my husband was going to let me, because not that he's controlling or anything, but he knew that I did some damage in the past. So I thought that he wouldn't be on board with this sport again, but he's been super supportive. And I think that's why it pushes me forward, because when he says yes, I'm all in, you know?
Yeah, so you're visualizing the X essentially.
Oh,
every single day you visualize that X.
All those things I said, visualizing this, all your senses, everything. And then to go along with that, my other manifestations for work. That's the other thing. It's like I visualize helping people, and I like to talk. So being quiet, being present and listening, that's difficult for me. So just listening to the patient's needs, really honing in on what they want, because I have such a short time with them. And when I go to work, that's what I want. And also harmony, create harmony within the girls at work, and just lift everyone to my frequency and not go down to their level, or whatever level is not at my level. I just keep a positive mindset, clear communication. I just say this whole thing on the way to work or in the morning before, so that it sets my day. It's what do I want to see happen today? And that's actually serves me.
Do you think that someone can say words and not necessarily mean them, but say them, and then it direct a path for their day, even if they don't necessarily mean what they're saying because they don't really believe it yet?
I think it still has benefit. Okay.
Has that ever happened to you where you say things and you're like, I don't really believe that, but because I said it, I think it's playing out in real life?
I don't know.
And I've asked this question many times to many different people, because I really want to understand what words mean to people. This is fascinating to me.
Well, when it's a self-talk, you mean it, right? Whether it's, don't get run over by a car. That's a negative one, but it's still like, oh God, I'm fat. You mean it. But if you start to say the things that you want, maybe you don't believe it yet, but you do have to say them. You have to say them until they come true. Because, for example, I don't know who I heard this, maybe Hal Elrod, where he got in a car accident. He had brain issues with memory. And he says, well, don't ask me to remind you of anything because I have a brain injury. Well, he kept saying that until he stopped saying that. Before you knew it, he's all, sure, I'll remind you of that. And he was like shocked, because he was telling the self-talk changed for him. And then one day when somebody asked you, can you remind me to do whatever? And he's all, sure. And it changed. Mm-hmm. So I guess I don't know if that example helps, but I think definitely it's a start in the right direction. Is it the best? No, because you believing it will help for sure, empower the manifestation. But it is helpful.
Some people. So your advice is, well, let's say it's advice. Let's just say that if there were someone in front of you and asking you, Milay, how do I do what you do? Like how do I get on stage? What would your words be to them?
It's your mindset. It's your why. How do you stay? Because there's a lot of aspects to that question. To first build muscle and to eat enough to get a coach. It's also very expensive to get a coach, so there's a lot of things to consider. And the mindset, I say, is a very important thing, because once you get to the stage and they judge you, what do they know? He's like 28, 22, telling you you're not good enough. You have to be tougher than that and know that your package that you brought to the stage is the best you. And if you can remember that and not let those judges get you down, and just continue the sport if you want for the judges, fine. But you have to believe and know that you did your best. That's the main thing I'll say at the end. But as far as getting there and staying motivated and all those things, it's a process. And you have to mostly find out your why. Why are you doing this? Because my why changed 4 times, I think, maybe even more since the beginning. At first it was like, well, let's just see if I can do it. And then it was like, wow, I did pretty good. And then I said, let's see if I can do it again. And then, if I'm going back even before, it was for vanity reasons. I was like, I want to look like that. But then it was, once I won, I thought, I might be good at this. And then I really liked being good at something. And I wanted to do it again. And then I did better once I got a coach, once I learned how to pose and things like that. But then I got sick. But anyway, so now after this year, my why changed. Along the way, I turned pro and all these things. But then I realized how many people were affected, or how many people were not affected, but inspired. Yes, they were inspired. And they told me that you don't know this, but a lot of people find you inspirational. And I was so, that gave me so much joy. And that process, I learned different things this year about myself, about all the time I spend doing this. Now I don't get in my head about how hard it is. Instead, I think, let's just do it for fun. And when I got to the backstage this year, I met so many beautiful women, not just physically, but mentally, that are all in this small group of women. I mean, there's not a lot of 50-year-olds that can still compete. So it's a very close-knit group, and all women that have done their careers or still doing them, but they've raised their kids. They've all got a certain level in their life where they are just happy and happy to share their happiness for you. It's none of the stuff that you see with the young girls. They're like, I want to be better than you, So it was a really, truly different experience this year, a joy that I've never felt before. So I had such a phenomenal year. So I feel like if I never compete again, I feel lucky that I experienced this particular year. But if I get to do it again, it would be bonus. It would be like, wow, I'm so lucky.
What if, and even if things didn't kind of turn in your favor?
Meaning that I can't compete again?
No, like if you went to go compete again next year, let's say, if things had the exact opposite, like there was no camaraderie, it was a negative experience with shows, would you have any regret with that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it would be an experience that would probably discourage me from competing again, for sure.
Sure.
But in the end, you're bringing your best you, and all those other things are bonuses and love for the backstage and things like that. But in the end, I'm still a competitor. I have lots of colleagues that compete and that are not competitive. They've never gotten judge feedback. They don't have a coach. They've never gotten training with posing coaches on how to pose. I mean, there's one person, one coach, or I don't know where I heard it, that anyone that knows how to pose on stage will beat a more muscular competitor any day of the week. Because if you can't show your best side or your best attributes or your best muscle or whatever, your shape and your silhouette, and hide your weaknesses, and that muscular person can't show their muscle or make a tiny waist, you will win.
Yeah, that's true.
And I believe it now, because when I go backstage and I see those huge shoulders and those huge glutes. And I'm like, oh God, I'm dead. But I try not to say that. I just remind myself, you know what? Go out there, have fun. This is the best me. I already know. You know, you have to talk to yourself a lot.
Yeah. You can't do anything about it at that point.
No.
What's done is done. Yeah. That can discourage you. It can discourage most. But when you realize that reality is, I brought my best package. They brought their best package. We'll just have to leave it to the hands of the judges at this point. You know, and it's in their hands. And realistically, you can't persuade a judge on stage except for the way that you pose. Mm-hmm. Anything other than that, it's in their hands.
Well, I will say that if you know your judges, that might help you too. On the West Coast, they like them a little bit scrawnier, a little bit leaner, more conditioned. They call it more conditioned when you're a little bit leaner. On the East Coast, the girls out there, I don't know what they eat. Corn fed maybe, but they are big. They are big, and I don't. The judging is a little bit different there. And head judges. If you start to know what wins based on the head judge, then you can compete towards that. Like, oh, I got to come in a little bit leaner, a little fuller, a little this for this panel. Gotta, you know.
That's why I've obviously competed numerous times, but I was never really a competitor like that because I didn't care about the judge. I only cared about myself bringing my best package, whatever that shit was, between my coach and I. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I could probably never be a pro. One, I don't have the genetics to be a pro. Two, I would never do what it takes to be a pro in terms of PED use. Mm-hmm. But three, because I don't give a shit about the judge at the end of the day. I only care about my package. Mm-hmm. I only care about the way I look in comparison to what I looked like the year prior, the year prior to that. That's why I would never be a good competitor, because the judge has no bearing on me. Although it does, right?
I mean,
if you
that's
want to
good,
win.
but if you want to win,
Right.
the only component missing would be to learn how to pose to beat the other bigger person, because it does matter. If you can't, the judges sit below you on a stage. And so if your back is not tilted back so that they can see it, then they won't see what you did all in the gym. Mm-hmm. So it does matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it will matter to the people who really want to climb their way to the top. And that it's because everything is predicated on the judge. Mm-hmm. I mean, they don't really have a bearing when a say when it comes to that, you know? But I know this is probably going to be the same across the board with all competitors, but I have to ask the question anyways. How do you eat? I know people want to hear about the possible blandness to the diet and how you keep disciplining towards eating the chicken. People are going to probably think you eat chicken, broccoli, and rice. So, and I know it's probably the same across the board with competitors, but how do you eat?
I'm glad you asked me that though, because it changed since I began. It was kind of like chicken, rice, and I did meals that were preset for me. You're going to eat this much, either chicken, this or that, and this much of rice, potatoes, or this. And now I go by macros. And macros, for those that don't know, is protein, carbs, and fats. And my coach also counts fiber, or has an amount that she wants me to get to. But the best thing I could have done is meal prep. And I shout out to Ryan, who does Clean Machines, because
Ryan meal preps for you?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's
and
the
I have
best.
to. I might be getting him in trouble for saying this, but he prep. I told him I had to stop doing his meal prep because the fat was a little bit high when I was getting close to my shows, and he said, "What? I will make lower fat meals for you." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, just so I don't, it's like you can see it in Sharpie. He changed the fat. I don't know how he does it, but it was a life-saving thing. I was like, okay, you don't know what this means to me, but I think that was a huge help. Low stress. Yeah. I came home from work. I had something to eat. I just stuck it in the boiling water. And I've tried, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I've tried Trifecta and other brands, and it's not as tasty as Ryan's food. Yeah,
shout out to Ryan Clean Machine Meals. He actually did the same thing for me when this is about a few years back. He would make me individualized meals that were off the meal plan for his regular for everybody else that followed his stuff, and he would just make me bland like chicken, rice, vegetables, and that was really and beef and potatoes and vegetables, and that was it. And so
I wouldn't say bland. It was delicious.
Right.
Just less fat.
Yes. Well, in comparison to what he would make with like the egg frittata and any kind of like the sweet potato pork sliders, things like that, like how he would make it for the general public, it was bland in comparison to that, but still really good. And actually the reason why I said, Ryan, dude, your meals are too good. And this is not me trying to prop him up here. Like I really did feel this way. I was so used to eating bland foods that I thought there's something else in here. There's something in here and I don't know what it is because I'm not a chef and I don't know how he cooks this. It's way too good for me to feel like I'm doing my body what the justice it needs right now to look the way I want to look.
It tasted like it's not as low fat as it is.
Oh, it tasted like yes. And it's just, I know that's a testament to his cooking ability. He's just a really good chef, but I just psychologically it was screwing with me. And I'm like, I gotta just go back to basics. Let me eat my baked chicken, rice, and, plain broccoli and beef and potatoes and,
So I did that. I would extend his food and just add more chicken to it and mix it with and make 2 meals out of it by adding more chicken and whatever.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I made it into 2 meals sometimes because the sauce was so good,
Oh my gosh.
But even my husband likes his food. So I'm like, this is a game changer.
It is. Huge
game changer for competitors. For me, for low stress, having less stress meal prepping, that's a big deal because you spend so much time in the kitchen chopping, prepping, that it was just a life-saving thing to find Ryan and clean machines.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, Ryan is very, very good, and he knows it too. I don't think I've ever met anybody who doesn't like his food. Like I've
only met him once, to be honest.
No, I'm thinking people in general that have never liked that because I've shared his meals with people and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so good, especially for a meal prep. This is not like you're going to Ember and expecting something very, extravagant and fancy and wholesome, etc. But it is all those
And my
things.
husband's picky too, so the fact that he likes this food, I'm like, yay, thank you.
Does your husband do any kind of form of bodybuilding or eating like
He's
disciplined eating?
super active, super into eating well and healthy, and goes to the gym every day practically, does Pilates, but no interest in bodybuilding. None.
Well, at least good for him that he engages in some type of physical activity because that's very, very important.
Although now he's calculating macros all on his own after all these years. And I am loving it because now we have something to do. Like now he gets me. He'll ask me, how many grams of protein is that? I'm like, this much.
Right.
And I'm like, come at me with some more questions,
It's crazy how you remember that data from different, I guess, like oats or different like ounces of meat or whatever. Like you remember like how much something is.
Well, it's only because it's daily, not because.
Well, not because you want to, sure, but you these things you remember the data for them because they're important to you. Because it's important to stay on track and it's important to meet your calorie needs every day. And it's important to, again, the goal in mind to come in your best for that one day is important. And everything leading up to that as by default becomes important.
And to go back to what you were asking about how to get to the stage, I think giving yourself grace, it's a learning curve. So initially it's going to seem like a lot because if you're not used to calculating macros, it's going to seem like a lot to learn. If you're not used to going to the gym 5 and 6 days a week, it's going to feel like a lot. So I think if depending on where your starting point is, give yourself grace and give yourself the time to learn these things. And after a while, just like riding a bike, just like going to work every day, getting up, it's going to seem like nothing. But remember, you have to start somewhere and give it time. Give yourself lots of time to adjust and to become a habit and all those things.
Have you ever thought about coaching yourself? Clients?
No.
you'd be a good coach because you have this empathy to you that can be the saving grace for a lot of competitors or potential competitors. You know, you understand all the aspects of what it takes to be good and be competitive and be and actually stay on your pursuit. And you're able to navigate in an articulate way how to do that to the person. At least what I've seen on not only the podcast and what I've seen in real time with at the gym with you, just in our small conversations. You know, and it's not for everybody because, for example, I'd never want to be a coach because I wouldn't want that riding on me, that expectation riding on me to bring that person to their best physique and staying with them, especially throughout the last 4 weeks of competition when they're the most mood, you know, susceptible to mood swings and, you know, to some degree emotional and just temperamental. And then especially through peak week, that would be horrific, you know, and but
for those who don't know what peak week is the week before your competition where you manipulate your carbs, your water, your workouts, you taper down and you increase your water. And the other question that people have asked me is if you still dehydrate, and you do relatively. You water load the week, like days 7, 6, 5 out. Well, I take that back. That was the year before with my other coach. You water load and then you kind of taper down. And with my current coach, you actually just maintain the same amount of water the whole peak week. And on show day, you just sip when you're thirsty.
That's actually what I did for most of my competitions. I had the same coach the whole way through, and he was a big believer in that. He didn't want to throw off, you know, I guess for lack of a better word, chemistry, you know, within the body and throw off electrolytes, etc. So he would have your body. He basically wanted you to look the way you were going to look 2-3 weeks out. And then basically 2 weeks out, and then kind of ride it into and he didn't want you to change anything. Yeah. He didn't want you to change your breakfast. He didn't want you to change it
or try something new.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no difference the day of the show. Your body doesn't understand any of the difference. And if anything, it can throw you off because it sets off the stress hormone cortisol, and that could retain water. If you get anticipate and you get anxious and you have a sense of like fear in you, you know, because that's all natural to all of us going through something where we're leading up into a show date where we've prepped for the last 12, 15, 16 plus weeks. There's going to be some anticipation leading into that one day. And so he just wanted to keep everything as normal as you could.
Yeah.
Drop the body fat.
Factors, that would cause you stress. Yeah. I do change things like on the day before and the day of, I do not eat any vegetables.
Right.
Yeah, fiber will kill you. And then you kind of have, no matter what you do, no matter how calm you try to be, your stomach is nervous. And the other thing that you don't expect is how many carbs your coach is going to give you, because if you're a certain leanness and your body will do whatever it wants to do when it's nervous, if it doesn't start filling out, she's going to throw more carbs, or he's going to throw more carbs at you. And sometimes your stomach is going, well, that's a lot of food. And so then you change the food that you're going to put in you that has a higher glycemic index, which is not the norm. You're going to pick things that are high carb and small in your stomach. Like for me, it was like cream of rice. It's like watery, it goes right through you, but it's high carb. So I did change my food in that aspect as well. And I don't choose fruit necessarily that day. It was just all things that have a high glycemic index that'll go straight to your bloodstream. So I would say that I did change my foods in that way. But yeah, no veggies.
Yeah, that's just to get the peak going, right? Like bring out the vascularity, keep intramuscular cellular fluid there, but not anything that's over the muscles. We don't want to see any kind of fluid over the muscles. We want to keep that vascularity, right?
But also the other question I get is like, oh, you can't have any salt. And that's not true. Whatever salt you are used to eating, you do have to count your salt. Not just the food, put in the salts that you add, which is kind of a pain because salt is so tiny. Yeah. So I got used to like measuring how much salt is 2 shakes or 2 twists of my salt shaker. But if you keep it consistent, then your show day, you're just eating salt, and that's what makes you vascular. Actually, I don't in bikini they don't want you vascular, but it gives you a pump. Yeah. So if I noticed that one day I didn't have enough salt, and I get a little dizzy and things like that.
Yeah, you throw off the electrolytes, and that's the other people will conflate electrolytes with carbs. They just think I need more carbs. I need a pump. I need fuel. Yeah, you don't. Maybe you just need salt, and it's just that simple, half teaspoon or quarter teaspoon or whatever of some salt, and you're good to go.
Yes,
and some water.
I highly agree with that. Every time I have sometimes I just have a little pinch of salt. It gets in my system, and within 5 minutes, my blood pressure's up, which is kind of a testimony to why people with high blood pressure should not have salt.
Yeah, true.
Because
Well, you're in the RN world.
yeah, I'm a registered nurse. Yeah.
So talk about what got you into that, because we know what got you into bodybuilding, or what kind of was the impetus to bodybuilding or bikini competing. What got you into the
It's
the
a cute
nurse world?
story, actually.
Let's hear it.
My mom used to do B12 shots. We lived by the border of Mexicali, so she could get that in Mexicali. And she used to ask all of us girls, I have 2 other sisters, to give her the B12 shots. And I think I was probably 7 years old. And she would ask me to do how to do it, draw it up or whatever. And she had me practice on an orange. And then she goes, okay, now do it on me. And I was like, okay. And so I would give her the injection. She goes, are you doing it? And I said, yes, I did it. And she's like, I didn't feel a thing. And so I thought she was just being nice to me, like complimenting me. But then she would always look for me to give her the injections when my other sisters were in the house. So then I started to believe I'm really good at this. And I don't know about you, but that drives me.
100%,
and I mean,
yeah.
I'll never forget it, because I said, I'm good at injections. And since that day, I've said, I think I should be a nurse because I'm good at injections. That's actually the only reason, to be honest. That is it. And yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Your mom was materializing something in you that you didn't even know you had.
That's what I'm telling you about the power. You don't realize the power you have to inspire somebody. She, from that day on, I mean, I believed her. I believed that I was good at something with needles. And so now, so then I became a nurse, and I started working in critical care at surgical ICU at LA County USC for about 4 years. And then I did Long Beach, whatever, open hearts and things like that. But I had children, I stopped working, and then we moved up here. And this was in LA. So then we moved up here 2000, and I stopped working for a while. And then I started talking to another fellow nurse, and she said, you should work for American Laser Center. And I started working there doing aesthetics, lasering, so beauty. And I said, oh, this is so easy. I could do this while I have the little kids, at home. And it was just part-time. And then one day, and then a rep for one of the injection dermal fillers came in and says, hey, we want to show you guys this product. And he was showing us how to inject. And back then, a rep can allow you to inject. And I said, well, let me try this. I go, wait, don't tell me. I would put this right here and right here. Was I right? And he's like, yeah, really good. And so then I did the injections, and he says, you have a really good hand. And then I said, I do? There I go again. I'm like, I'm good at this. So then I was hooked from that day on. I said, I want to do injections. So now I'm an aesthetic nurse injector for coastal dermatology for the office of Dr. Kill Klein in San Luis Obispo. And I'm just the happiest person there. I mean, I've worked in different offices leading up to that, but life takes you in different places until you land where you belong. Mm-hmm. And I think it's meant to be that way, so you can appreciate your employer, you can appreciate what you have, and certainly I belong there. So I'm really happy to be there.
Good for you. Well, okay, so can you explain, because when you were talking, I was wondering this. What does it mean to have a good hand when it comes to injection?
Means that, well, I'll tell you a few things. Patients will say, I didn't feel that. and a needle to the face, that causes so much anxiety. With the anxiety, it causes more pain. So you would expect, oh my God, this is going to hurt. So most of the time, patients will say, wow, especially if they tried a different office or a different nurse, they say that hurt a lot less, or that didn't even hurt nearly like it did in the past, or I thought I was going to need numbing cream or whatever. So a light hand, meaning that it doesn't cause as much pain as they expected.
Is there a way you go into the skin that's maybe different from
there's
others?
different techniques to distract. Tapping a different part of the face while you are poking down here.
Oh, really?
Or we also have a little a distractor that vibrates, and it vibrates on the bone, and they're like paying attention over here while I'm sticking the needle over here.
Got
Or
it.
especially if you put it by then. I have an assistant that does that, but and then we ice the skin, and believe it or not, icing the skin, people say, I didn't feel that at all. And I don't know. I try not to over promise that, oh, you're not going to feel a thing, but it's the patients that say, oh, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. First of all, stop saying that. Next, I said, tell me if it hurts when I'm done or after I do it, and then oftentimes I'll put a little bit of filler in there, and then I go, okay, how'd that feel? They're all, I don't know.
So you do filler, Botox. What are some of the things you do? Other
So
things?
all of the 3 different neuromodulators, which is Botox, that's what we call a neuromodulator, Botox, Dysport, Xeomin. And the fillers, we do all of them except for, currently we just don't do Versa, but all the different brands from Allergan, Juvederm, Radius, and RHA is the new kid on the block.
What's RHA?
RHA is a different filler. They're all hyaluronic acid except for one. The only one that's not hyaluronic acid is Radius. And that's a calcium appetite, and it's like calcium spheres, and they generate collagen.
Okay.
And then, so there's 2 modalities. There's fillers that are, I was just going to post this actually. My analogy is seed versus sod. So seed is a product that you put in the skin to grow your own collagen. It's just like seed is. You're waiting 6 to 8 weeks for it to grow. And filler is instant. You put it under the skin, it instantly perks up the cheeks or crevices that you have, or concavities. So that's what filler. It's instant. It's sod. Instant grass. It's like, pow, beautiful already.
How long does that last?
It varies in the location of the face, but it can last. Lip fillers and things like that can be 6 months, up to 2 years for some things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you put fillers in anywhere else in the face apart from just the lips?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Lips is just the.
How does that work? Where would you put fillers in? I guess it depends on the person's face, right? And where they need it. But what are some typical localized or typical locations that people ask for filler?
Great question. So the biggest thing that people come in for, and they say, I hate this. This is like the number one right here, or 11s if it's neuromodulator. But they always say, I hate these lines.
And the lines are
nasolabial folds and the marionette lines. We call these marionettes.
By the mouth, yeah.
By the mouth. Yeah. And that is like the number one. But that is like the number one worst place you can put filler for 2 reasons. Number one, this is the highest risk area for that artery to go right up to your eye and blind you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and there's really, it's such a scary thing that
you discourage
I discourage it. I try not to do it. I clench a little bit. I sweat a little bit when I inject there. But
they asked to do it anyways. They're like, I don't
care.
care.
Well, we do some things to help us not to know that we're not in an artery. Keep the needle moving. Aspirate really well before you inject. Just change the needle, maybe don't prime the needle, all these little tricks that we have now to do. And you got to know your planes. I mean, the artery in this area is generally deeper, so going really superficial should be safe, but there's lots of variances,
Wow.
But anyway, so the go-to here, my go-to to anyone that is aging, as I have to re-educate them, because this is what doctors used to do, or nurses in the past, is fill this. But nobody looks younger like this. That looks like, rest her soul, Joan Rivers. So this is a symptom. These lines, these shadows that you look at yourself two-dimensionally, these are just symptoms of the fallen collagen and bone from the upper face. So as we age, our orbital rims open up and rotate out, and that's why you get kind of those bags under the eyes or the dip or the shadows. And same with the tear troughs. And then we have this ligament that comes across, and from the deep fat and the superficial fat, it starts to split from that maxillary ligament. And so it swoops like this, and you start to see this aged looking divot, or this divot makes you look aged. And then the loss of collagen here, so this inverted triangle that is a youthful young face is now looking rectangular. So putting that shape back to an inverted triangle is what is going to make you look youthful. It's not getting rid of all these lines, because you can be old as can be and get rid of this line, you're still going to look old.
Sure.
It's that inverted triangle. So when you look at somebody in public, you say, oh, she looks young. You're not going to say, oh, she has this beautiful OG curvature here. You're going to say, she just looks young. And if somebody that's rectangular, you're going to say, she looks old. But you're not going to say, oh, it's because she has a rectangular shape and all her volume is here. So by shifting the volume back here, lifting up that ligament, and this is just my personal opinion, this is what I do, this is what's worked for me all these years, is lifting up that ligament depending on how much volume they need. Maybe I'll put it on top of the bone, maybe I'll put it under the bone, but basically it's like a doorstop. You lift up that ligament, put that product on bone, and it's like a doorstop, and it lifts your face, and it is like magic.
Really?
Because you put a little volume underneath the bone, pinning them back, and it's what people do every day in the mirror. They'll go, if I could only be just like this.
Sure.
And when they do this, it lifts this. So same thing here. I do that here, and it's like, I'll show them after I've done half their face, and it's proof is in the half and half face.
Right.
They're like, you're magic. And I'm like, no, it's not magic, but.
And that lasts for 6 months to 2 years with some people, depending on how they metabolize.
Yeah, well, most of the products are a year. Some say they're 2 years, but the problem is, it's not a problem. You're not going to wait for it to go down to ground zero again.
Sure.
You're going to come back in a year, so I always warn them, you're going to want to come back a year, maybe even sooner, to do that. But sometimes I don't like to also, depending on their age, volumize them all in one session. I say it's going to take 2 or 3 sessions. So I make a whole plan.
That's fascinating. I did not know that about fillers. I'm so,
I probably said too much.
No, you didn't. I'm so uneducated when it comes to fillers. I just think, as a man, I think, oh, fillers in the lips. Like girls get lip fillers, and I didn't really know there was anything else. The lip fillers and Botox is all I really understood. But this is all fascinating because it's all new material that I didn't know. And the way you inject it and how, and for people that are just listening and they're not viewing online, when you're talking about the upside down, or the, what is it, upside down triangle, inverted triangle, you're talking about, like, if you were to grab, you actually did this illustration, you grabbed your index finger, your middle finger, and you pulled back sort of by your cranium, the skin by your cranium, and it kind of lifted your cheek, the cheekbones and everything, right? And so that's kind of where you inject the filler, or roundabout in that location where you inject the filler to allow that to take place, where it pulls things back. And is it, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, is it plumping it up and that's pulling it?
Some patients are volume depleted. Most patients need some volume, but for the most part, depending on their bone structure, you may not want to put so much on that bone and volumize them. Some people are really volume depleted, people that do a lot of cardio, their temples are deep, and then there's something you can put for that too. You do want to soften their sharp lines around their bones, their brows, and their sunken temples, because that also makes you look aged. Just having sunken in cheekbones, kind of beneath the cheekbones, I'd rather. And there's also things like PDO threads. I don't know. That's one more aspect.
What's that?
One more thing. It's polydioxanone threads, and they're dissolvable sutures. And what I do with those is to insert them underneath the skin and to pull to pull the skin tight. So I go up in the temple area, or sometimes in this gonial angle where the back of the jaw is, to pull back. And it's not, there's less candidates for that. You have to be a mild to a mild moderate laxity. You can't be 80 and say, hey, I want this. If surgery is what they need, I will tell them, this will not help you. You are wasting your money. And I do pride myself in being honest with them and tell them, these are your options. And I think these are the best outcomes for you. And I won't do anything that's not going to give you a good result.
Are there ever people that only need the fillers and no Botox?
No such thing.
No such thing.
I mean, unless they're like 20.
One comes with the other, typically, right?
Young girls don't necessarily need Botox. They just, a lot of times they're coming because they want enhancement of their lip, generally. Unless they have some kind of a genetic disposition for big tear troughs and divots, and then maybe, but it's rare. The young girls, we call it baby Botox. If they're starting to develop a line, they just need a little sprinkle, and a little goes a long way with the young girls. And that's why we call it baby Botox.
Interesting.
I know.
You love doing it. You can tell you love it. You're so passionate about it. And that's cool because, and I often talk about this, when you love what you're doing, or you find you're very immersed in the passion that you're pursuing, it's never work. It's just something that you do, and you're just operating. It's just how it's what you would do for free if we lived in a world that everything was paid for. You would want to do that thing because it fulfills you ultimately.
Absolutely.
And that's the quest, is finding something that fulfills you in life.
Yeah.
You have two things. You're obviously your injection business, and then you have bodybuilding. But because you found those pursuits, yes, they're hard. I mean, obviously getting into being an RN, it took years of studying, it took years of schooling, etc. But it fulfills you ultimately. You found a niche in that space where you thrive in. And then with bodybuilding, that ultimately fulfills you as well on the physical level. And because of these components being materialized to their full capacity, you're able to live the best existence you could live. And because of that, you can give your best to anybody that comes and interacts with you. And that's very important for people to create themselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up, because I will say that it's evolved for me. My work has evolved. I used to think that I'm going to make them look the best I can. But now I realize that when people come and sit in my chair, they are broken. They feel ugly. They are emotionally not feeling their best. And honestly, a syringe is not going to fix that internal emotional state. So I realize now that I have the power to make them feel better, even without the syringe. So in conjunction with whatever they do to themselves, it's really important to get down to why they're here and what is going on. Because if I can help them feel better about themselves, that syringe is going to go 3 years out, 4 years out. It's going to last them much longer, and they're going to feel that happiness much longer than a syringe. And this is the analogy I give people, or the example. You don't look at yourself in the mirror all day long, but you do know how you feel all day long. And if you can feel beautiful and feel happy and feel lifted and feel like a spring in your step, then that's going to go a lot further than one syringe of filler.
Agreed, yeah.
And that's the power that I realize now that I have. If I can get down to what is bothering them, help them resolve that, help them feel good about where they are, how beautiful they really are. And honestly, when you're with somebody, you don't necessarily remember, oh, their lips, that wrinkle, this. You remember how you feel when you're with them. So beauty does really come from the inside. And if I could just get them to understand that before they leave, I've done, I feel really good about myself. And so anyway.
Yeah, and that reciprocity effect is major. That reciprocity effect, rather, that you gain from the person you're making them feel good, but because you made them feel good, that's your reward in return. And that sort of thing. Many people don't really find that in life. Many people don't find what breeds that in their life, and as a result, they just do things to get by. They just do things to, I don't know, pay the bills. They just do things to live, to keep living. And although I understand that and I get that, you should never, and you can agree with this or not, you should never give up on your visions. You should never give up on the things that you derive fulfillment from, or that have the potential to fulfill you in ways that a regular 9 to 5, something that you're not really that invested in, can. It's very important to never let go of those visions, to never let go of those dreams, rather, for lack of a better word. It's never something that you should do, even if you're not putting a lot of effort into it currently because everything else consumes you. At least putting 1% of your day into that thing, so that it's never an afterthought, because it should never be an afterthought. Your dreams, your visions, everything that has the potential to create you and fulfill you on levels that nothing else can, should never be abandoned, ever.
Well, and sometimes too, when you have a dream, you don't know until you get there if that fulfills you. That's what I'm telling you. That's I didn't know that this was going to be so fulfilling. I didn't realize that it was going to evolve into something so rewarding. I feel really lucky, but to get to what I want, I do when you said don't ever forget, I have a vision board because I forget. So on my vision board, it's not just a vision board, it's an action board. So what are the things I have to do to get there? And then I put a picture of what I want to look like, or a picture of where I want to go, or what I want to achieve, and the steps. Because you can't just get there with just hoping. You have to actually, what are the steps you're going to take to inch your way to that vision? So it's an action board as well.
I love that.
And if you look at it every day, you'll remind yourself, and you start your day with that intention.
Even writing it down oftentimes too helps people, because they're
journaling.
They're making it a reality through their penmanship. But that has power in and of itself as well to ultimately create the vision as well. On top of that, on top of you thinking it and seeing it, writing it too.
Yes, absolutely. Journaling, meditating, vision board, all of it. And exercise. And sleep. And
good food, right?
And food, nutrition. Absolutely. They all go together.
You are crazy inspirational.
Wow, great.
And I'm
so happy.
I'm so glad that you came on. I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation. And for people that are just tuning in, that maybe in Canada or the UK and don't know who you are, can you please tell them where to find you so they can, if they'd like, get in contact with you?
Oh, wow. Okay. So Milay is MILAY _IFBB Pro, I think. And the other one is Milay, MILAY _RN_aesthetics. Wow. I didn't know you were going to ask me to do that. But thank you so much for having me. I was really nervous, but I'm glad I did it. So
it was a great time. You did great. All right. Well, I'll see you in the gym, I'm sure.
Yes, I will.
Done.